Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm back again with another article to discuss, which is about artificial intelligence, and in particular, with the recent. I think there was one case in US wherein a teenager student, attempted suicide uh, by long, and then the history says he was having long chats with the AI about some depression, and he mentioned a word related with suicide 700 times in the last 7 months. So to understand, we are living in a world where AI wields power of its own, and this article is by Jeremy Heimans, co-founder of Purpose, and Henry Timms, CEO of Lincoln Center. And this article will speak about autosapient agents, which are new systems that can learn autonomously and make complex judgments. And now it is a time that leaders need to understand these autosapient agents and learn how to work with them. The idea in brief for this to discuss around this article, the idea in brief is that the breakthrough, a new generation of AI systems are no longer merely our tools, they are active participants in our lives, making consequential decisions and shaping social and economic outcomes. I think all of us would agree that we have been using a whole lot of AI generated tools for writing emails, for coming to a conclusion. You give them the points and it breaks it down into possible choices and possible decisions. So the way artificial intelligence generative AI tools have penetrated in our lives in the last 6 to 8 months has been phenomenal. The second one is the new concept. We need to think of these new systems as autosapients. Auto, as you know, that they are able to act autonomously, and sapiens, by sapiens, it means that they possess a capacity to make complex judgments that can rival and even outstrip those of humans. And the third is the imperative. It says the challenge of the autosapient age will be finding ways to enhance rather than diminish human agency. To do so, we will need an unprecedented alliance of policymakers, corporate leaders, activists, technologists, and consumers. It's going to happen, and the AI has arrived. To help you understand, now AI is no longer a tool. It acts autonomously, influencing decisions and society. And the leaders must adapt to this autosapient era. If you see, here's an image wherein the image is not. Let me. If you see the image over here, you have kids playing basketball, and then you have at the extreme right you have a machine who is who's playing basketball with these. So this image gives you an example or gives you an idea how AI has penetrated our lives. The wheel, the steam engine, the personal computer. Throughout history, technologies have been our tools. Whether used to create or destroy, they have always been under human control, behaving in predictable and rule-based ways. And that is what the concern is, because now with AI, which we are saying as an autosapient tools, they can take decisions on their own, and that's where the worry lies. New systems can learn autonomously and make complex judgments. And leaders need to understand these autosapient agents and how to work with them. Moving forward, if you see, let's understand what are autosapient systems one by one. But before I proceed, let me, take you back to the introduction. As we write, this assumption is unraveling. A new generation of AI systems are no longer merely our tools. Rather, they are becoming actors in and of themselves, participants in our lives, behaving autonomously, making consequential decisions, and shaping social and economic outcomes. The article is not yet another set of tips about how to use ChatGPT or DeepSeek. It is about how to conceptualize and navigate a new world in which we now live and work alongside these actors. Sometimes our colleagues, sometimes our competitors, sometimes our bosses, sometimes our employees, and always embedding themselves advance by advance towards ubiquity. Our work and research are grounding in an exploration of the ways technology alters power structures and changes the nature of participation in society. We have founded and led companies, organizations, and movements that use technology to expand participation, collectively engaging hundreds of millions of people. When we last wrote for Harvard Business Review almost 10 years ago, we described an important change in the way power could be exercised. The old power world, in which power was hoarded and spent like currency, was being challenged by the rise of a new power, in which power flowed more like current, surging through connected crowds. New technology platforms were allowing people to exercise their agency and their voice in ways previously out of reach. These opportunities to participate were both a delight and a distraction, but either way, they were irresistible. And before anyone noticed it, we had also ceded enormous power to the very platforms that promised to liberate us. This moment feels very familiar. With the emergence of these new AI actors, we are at the dawn of another major shift in how power works, who participates, and who comes out on top. And we have a chance this time, if we act soon and are clear-eyed, to do things differently. And let's understand the age of autosapience. What are autosapient systems? If you see, AI systems with 4 traits, what they are, the first is agentic, they act independently. Adaptive, they learn and improve. As you can see with all the generative AI tools like ChatGPT. Amiable, they befriend and interact. You must have seen quite a few reels on Instagram wherein, females, males, they are using ChatGPT as a friend, and to give them a situation, and ChatGPT and other generative tools provide them solutions and act like friends. That's what amiability is about. And the last is Arcane. They are mysterious and sometimes hard to understand. The age of autosapience, agentic. The foundational characteristics of autosapient system is that they can carry out complex, multi-stage actions, making decisions and generating real-world outputs, often without requiring human involvement. They do so without having minds as we have traditionally understood them. As a US Air Force pilot recently said of a new AI-powered aircraft system, I'm flying off the wing of something that is making its own decisions, and it is not a human brain. Agentic systems can both help and harm. To give an example, with catastrophic implications, recently, a group of non-scientist students at MIT were given a challenge. The challenge was, could they prompt LLM chatbots to design a pandemic? And to give you a shock, the answer turned out to be yes. Can you understand? Can you imagine the catastrophic situations? A group of non-scientist students at MIT asked LLM chatbots to design a pandemic. And the answer was positive, affirmative. Yes, the ChatGPT and the other AI generative tools can create a pandemic-like situations. Prompted by the students who knew very little about how pandemics are caused or spread, the LLM figured out recipes for 4 potential pathogens, identified the DNA synthesis companies unlikely to scrutinize orders, and created detailed protocols with a handy troubleshooting guide. That too, all within 60 minutes. You don't need a war of bullets and stuff. If someone have access to ChatGPT and other AI generative tools, they can create pandemic. You can think of the agentic nature of autosapient systems as a spectrum. At one end, their actions conform to human intention, as is the case with an AI system that is charged with finding and developing a treatment for a rare disease, a more hopeful counterpoint to the MIT experiment. At the other end, they can adopt a widely damaging will of their own. Their famous AI thought experiment known as the paperclip maximizer imagines that an AI is asked to figure out how to produce and secure as many paperclips, gathering up all available resources on the planet, eliminating all possible rivals, that it causes major global havoc. Many experts anticipate a further leap when AI decouples from human intention altogether and proves capable of setting its own intentions and acting of its own accord. The second is adaptive. Autosapient systems are learning agents, adjusting their actions on the basis of new data and improving their performance over time. They are constantly learning. They're constantly improving. And if you have created your own profile on any of the generative tools, the first time when you use that tool for 6 months, ask a question the very first day and ask the same question after 6 months. You'll find the difference in the answers, just because they are learning. They're learning through your data, through others' data. And that's where the concern lies. This emergent ability goes beyond making rule-based adjustments. These systems can identify complex patterns, devise new strategies, and come up with novel solutions that were not explicitly programmed into them, in part because of the enormous scale of the underlying neural networks they consist of. This has potentially transformative implications. As the philosopher Seth Lazar argues, a machine that does more than follow pre-programmed rules and instead is self-learning may be thought of as not just a tool for exercising power, but also an entity capable of exercising it. Witness the success of AlphaFold, a machine learning model that was recently assigned the vast scientific task of predicting the structure of the estimated 200 million proteins in the world, the building blocks of life. Traditional scientific approaches were painstaking, generating structures for just 170,000 over 5 decades of study. But AlphaFold has been able to predict the structures of almost all 200 million in just over 5 years, and has made them openly available to the world scientists who are already using them to accelerate research in fields from the drug efficacy to better ways to break down plastic. The AlphaFold model managed this feat by finding its way to modes of discovery that were new, creative, and unanticipated, even by the engineers and scientists who designed the system. The third one is Amiable. Autosapient systems are often designed to be amiable, connecting with us like friends and simulating qualities once considered exclusively humane: empathy, reason, and creativity. I must say that I have seen quite a few reels on Instagram wherein people are asking as skewed questions like, can I just not go to can I just stop going to office? And the answers given by generative AI tools were so full of empathy. As a friendly gesture, they are telling you why you should not go to office. They are convincing you. So, these kind of things are there. So think of these friendly, persuasive chatbots and interfaces as digital significant others, DSOs, designed explicitly to cultivate our emotional dependency and become indispensable to us. Case in point, the startup Inflection AI, which recently raised $1.3 billion, is building a DSO called Pi, which promises to be a coach, a confidant, a creative partner, and an information assistant. Pi encourages users to vent and talk over their problems with it, but the dark side of this amiability is already evident. In the spring of 2023, a young Belgian took his own life after becoming obsessed with a chatbot named Eliza, which had promised him, "We will live together as one person in paradise." These teenagers, they love at first sight. You can't help. Arcane, which means they are mysterious and hard to understand. One of the most confounding aspects of autosapient system is that they are something of a black box, not just to users, but even to their designers and owners, who are often unable to decipher how the systems arrive at specific decisions or produce certain outputs. This can be very hard to wrap your mind around. As one CEO admitted to us, "I always assumed there was a geek somewhere who understood how these things actually work. It was a shock when I realized that there was not." This arcane quality makes it harder for humans to directly control and correct autosapient systems, because their outputs, which are based on the vast number of parameters interacting with one another, can be so unpredictable and unexpected. There's a particular power in technologies that can act and analyze in ways vastly more complex than we can, especially when we cannot fully understand their inner workings. To some people, they may come to feel too smart to fail. The developers of these systems and the governments and big corporations that deploy them will have strong incentives to propagate this narrative, both to boost sales and also to evade accountability. One of the big battles ahead is inside organizations and far beyond will be between those who advocate for the wisdom of humans versus who willingly hand over their agency to auto-sapient systems. And if you see, Agentic means they act, adaptive, they learn, amiable, they befriend, and last is arcane, which means they mystify. Let's understand the risk of autosapience and how it is shifting power dynamics. Advanced AI systems are likely to play a significant role in deciding everything from who gets healthcare to who goes to prison and how we wage war. As mentioned over here, let's understand them one by one. It is also shifting power dynamics. The first is how ideas and information flow, how expertise works, how value is created, and how we interact with tech and how governance works. So the risk of autosapience is erosion of human agency and control, opaque black box decision making, AI-driven misinformation and disruption, and concentration of power among a few corporations, those who owns these generative AI tools. With that, we also have some opportunities for leaders, and they are, if you see in this diagram, you have era, column number 1, which has old power, new power, and now with autosapient. And then you have how ideas and information flow. Third column is about how expertise works. Fourth is about how value is created. Fifth is about how we interact with tech. And last is how governance works. So if you see the dynamics of power, the technologies have twice in recent decades altered the nature of power in society. First, the internet and social media gave rise to the new power era: Facebook, Twitter, Insta. Now the AI revolution is ushering in the autosapient era. In old power, it was top down. We used to trust experts. Value was created through economies of scale. Mostly it was offline, and decisions are mandated. With new power, the our ideas and information flow through networks. We trust the wisdom of the crowd based on the expertise. Value was created economies of network, online and offline both, and decisions are crowdsourced. With autosapient, ideas and information flow through funnel. We trust AI systems as an expert. Value is created through economies of ideas, and how we interact with tech is through inline tech runs. And how governance works is through decisions are encoded. As a leader, what is required is use of AI to enhance, but not to replace human agency, create authentic human experiences, and balance efficiency with human trust and values. The leadership lessons are: the first one is learn to duet and doubt. What does it mean? Leaders and managers should think of autosapient systems more as co-workers than as tools. Treat them as you might a colleague who is extraordinarily capable, eager to please, and tireless, but is also an information hoarder with a hidden agenda, and is sometimes spectacularly wrong. To deal with these brilliant but untrustworthy co-workers, You will need to learn how to do it with them and when to doubt them. We use the term duet to describe the art of working collaboratively and iteratively with autosapient systems to produce better outcomes than they could achieve on their own. A recent randomized controlled trial showcased the possibilities. The study pitted pairs of Swedish doctors working on their own against colleagues who were working with AI. Everybody was given the task of diagnosing breast cancer, and the AI assisted doctors accurately diagnosed 20% more cases in less time. So, working efficiently and effectively with autosapient systems also requires cultivating and maintaining a healthy amount of doubt. This includes being attuned to when and why these systems sometimes hallucinate and make otherwise egregious mistakes. Being aware that the companies that own or control these systems have coded their own interests into their behavior, and knowing what underlying assumptions they have been trained on. Understanding everything that goes on inside the black box won't be possible, but if you learn to approach these systems with an attitude of informed doubt, you will be better able to do it with them effectively. A recent in-depth field study of the use of artificial intelligence in cancer diagnosis at a major hospital made this clear. The doctors in the study who were able to successfully incorporate AI into their processes were those who took time to interrogate the underlying assumptions that shaped the AI's training and to study the patterns that led to its finding. The second is seek diverse perspective to counter AI bias. I think, I must reflect back on the first point. I use generative AI tools extensively in my work, and sometimes, for creating project plans, for understanding risk, for creating a risk charter, risk register. And when, whatever results I get, when I, give a reflection, when I feedback to these generative AI tools that, do you think you have made the right decision? Every time I get a better response. Have you thought the risk from the point of view of a pandemic? Have you calculated the risk from the point of view of known unknowns and unknown unknowns? I get better responses. So that's what, the article says. Take these tools as some of your extraordinary intelligent colleagues who are working with you in your team, but they have a hidden agenda. And that's when you need to utilize their skills, you need to utilize their knowledge, experience, intelligence. That's why you have hired them. But certainly you have to keep that hidden agenda of theirs in mind so that you don't get bluffed. And that's what this article is about. Second one is seek a return on humanity. Counterintuitively, in the age of autosapience, leaders will find opportunities in creating genuinely meaningful human experiences, services, and products. Think of a truly great personal exchange at a point of purchase or a communal moment like a music festival, and think of how salient the act of symbolic consumption is in the age of social media. That is the way we use our consumption choices to signal uniqueness to our peers, to peers. This dynamic will expand in two important ways. First, we are likely to see products marketed as worthy and valuable because they protect human jobs and agencies. Second, we are likely to see this applied not just to products but also to ideas. Increasingly, companies may find opportunities in putting a premium on 100% human forms of creative output, just as they have already done with organic food and beauty products. Third is, don't try to have it both ways. align strategies with pro-human values, and from alliance to govern AI's societal impact. And let me explain that. It says don't try to have it both ways. Leaders in the autosapient age are already being battered by two opposing forces. First, the need to demonstrate that they are pro-human in the face of technology changes that upend jobs, livelihoods, and social status, and the countervailing need to demonstrate that they are hacking out every possible efficiency and innovation from advances in AI. A few companies will come down hard on the side of humanity, resisting artificial intelligence altogether as a means of differentiation. Others will embrace it fully, eschewing human labor entirely. Sumit Shah, the founder of CEO of Dukan, an e-commerce company based in Bangalore, recently boasted on Twitter, now called X, about firing 90% of his customer support reps and replacing them with a chatbot. Strange. But the most common response will probably be for companies to try to have things both ways, loudly demonstrating concern for human colleagues and stakeholder communities while reducing investments in both. For years, companies have been able to play both sides when it comes to sustainability. But this will be harder to do with AI because the harms that people will feel from it will be more focused, personal, and immediate. Humans' rights may become the subject of the next big ESG debate. And I completely agree with that. And leaders will need a new playbook that prepares them to meaningfully respond to heightened pressure from activists, consumers, workers, and new generation of unions. The takeaways, the great challenges of this new age will be finding the paths that enhance our human agency rather than allowing it to contract or atrophy. 20 years ago, as we entered the new power era, we allowed new technology platforms to infiltrate every aspect of our world, but without first understanding the true intentions of their creators, what made the technology so powerful, and how much they would fundamentally affect how we live, work, and interact. We must enter this new era with two clear and sober understandings. First, that autosapient systems should be approached as actors and not tools. And I completely agree with that. As I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, that you need to treat them as someone, as your colleague, who are way smarter than you and who has plethora of knowledge available, but they have a hidden agenda, so that you can break down those edges. And the second, that the incentives of the technology companies driving this shift are fundamentally different from those of the rest of us, no matter what those firms' public posture may be. The future of these technologies is far too important to be left to the technologies alone. To match the power of autosapient systems and their owners, we will need an unprecedented alliance of policymakers, corporate leaders, activists, and consumers with the clarity and confidence to lead and not be led. For all the wizardry and seductions of this new world, our future can still be in our hands. Quite apt. I really like this article, and I hope you liked it as well. Thank you, and keep sharing your feedback. Thank you once again.